Are we live?
All right, counting down in 6. We're going to be live in 6 seconds. 6.
Not hearing. Wait, but that's because he's using a separate.
The device he's working. All your devices. That's just audio into his ear. Nothing else. Otherwise, yes. Committee meeting by logging into the Zoom webinar listed below. Committee meetings may be viewed live and or on demand via the city YouTube channel at youtube.com/Brisbane CA or on Comcast channel 27. Archived videos may be replayed on the city's website, brisbaneca.org/meetings. Please be advised that if there are technological difficulties, the meeting will nevertheless continue if remote participation is available. The agenda materials may be viewed online at brisbaneca.org at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting and at least 24 hours prior to a special meeting. Remote public comments. Remote meeting participants may address the committee. Aside from commenting personally while in the Zoom webinar, the following email address will be monitored during the meeting, and public comments received will be noted for the record during oral communications or during an agenda item. That email is tsantoyo, that's TSANTOYO at ci.brisbane.ca.us. To join the Zoom webinar at zoom.us, please use the latest version of zoom.us/download. The web address for the webinar is at https://us06w.us/j/82213077463. The webinar ID is 822-1307-7463. You can also participate by telephone by calling this number 1-669-900-9128. A note to callers, *9 to raise your hand and dial *6 to mute and unmute your microphone. Special assistance. If you need special assistance to participate in this meeting, please contact Tomas Santoyo at TSANTOYO@brisbaneca.org or at telephone number 415-508-2100. Notification in advance of the meeting will enable the city to make reasonable arrangements to ensure accessibility to this meeting. Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could we please have roll call?
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Okay, all members are present and we have a quorum. We have no request for members to attend remotely, so that item A does not need to be considered. Adoption of the agenda. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as it has been presented, or any changes that someone would like to propose? Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Could we have roll call? Nothing.
And there's no oral communication at this moment.
Very good, thank you. Let's move on to approval of the minutes for our meeting, our last meeting, which was on February 1st, 2022. Were there any corrections, changes, additions, or deletions that anyone had for the minutes? Okay. Could I then have a motion to adopt the minutes as they've been presented?
I make the motion to adopt the minutes.
A second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Could we have roll call then?
Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to speak out against permit parking in Lower Brisbane, which I think if approved would eventually lead to permit parking on all residential streets in town. I've been out of the country for a while. I don't claim to be an expert on this, but I do have some concerns about why I think this is a bad idea. Number one, how much will this cost and who pays to enforce this? The city is on the verge of eliminating the senior shuttle, according to today's Star, and now they want to pay for parking enforcement. I question whether we have the time, money, and resources to enforce this. We are not Millbrae, we are not Hillsborough. Number two, people are very unhappy that water and sewer rates are going through the roof. Why should they now have to pay for parking? Three, I feel that the purpose of this is to punish people who have more than 2 cars, which means multi-generational families, people with teenagers, the poor living in multi-family housing situations, or those who have an extra car for family visits. Permit parking does not guarantee you have a space that's in front of your house. It only allows you to park on certain streets. Personally, I prefer that our police department focus on crime and not who is parked without a permit. We already have a solution to those who leave cars unattended for days. Call the city and they will be red tagged and towed. Those who are disabled can request a handicapped blue curb, I believe, in front of their homes. The focus of this committee is supposed to be street safety. To me, this is about creating an environment where neighbors report on neighbors and the city profits. The committee is supposed to be, it seems to me like overkill and government intrusion. Do we really need this? If this moves forward, I believe it should be voted upon by all residents in Brisbane. Thank you.
Thank you.
you want to take all the comment together? Okay.
Yes.
We'll go with Leslie Davis now. There she is.
Hi there, this is Leslie Davis.
We hear you, Leslie.
Oh, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. I've been a resident for over 35 years, and I don't really see a benefit to having parking permits. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but it's not going to change in my neighborhood, in my few block radius, anything. People park on the street. They don't use their garages for one reason or another. It's not going to change the amount of cars. We don't have a problem on our street of people parking and leaving their cars. So I'd be curious if there is information about how many cars have been towed over the last 12 months because they were left on the street. A lot of people claim that people park and go to the airport. So I don't know if that information is available, but I think that residential parking permit doesn't really help. Also, I have a question without knowing the entire program is if you have someone coming to visit for a day or two, or for spring break or the holidays, how many days can they park on the street without having a sticker before there's an issue? So those are my questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Leslie. Last attendee is Danny Chan. I'll promote now, Danny. Hey, Danny, you should be being prompted to being promoted to panelist, and then you should be able to speak once you're in there. Actually, you're on, Danny. You can speak now if you unmute your mic.
Have any thoughts, comments they want to make to the public comment? Okay, Linda, please.
Thank you for joining our meeting, and I just want to go back to how we came to work on this project. We were asked by the city council to take a look at what's going on, and it was at the park. I'm trying to think of the word. There is an availability for guest parking, students that go to college. We've really turned this inside out, and I hope that you will get an opportunity to read the document in full when it's done. And of course, once this goes to the council, which will be very soon, certainly bring your comments to them. And thank you for being here tonight.
We're just there, and also we'll continue to discuss tonight. So thank you for the comments, and all things will, continue to discuss.
Hi, I just wanted to add that we're calling this a living program. The first year we will be looking at and asking people to please comment on how it's working for you so that changes can be made and it evolves into a program that works for everyone. There's been an awful lot of discussion about people being unhappy with parking, and
To encourage people to, start to clean up their garage and see if they could, utilize that. That will free up some space, and also to try to get start weeding out some of the bad actors, like people that come here that they leave their car and they go to the airport. And there's people that have not just 2 or 3 cars; they have a lot of cars. But having said that, in terms of the cost of the programs, now
A few comments then as well. I think echoing much of what has already been said. We started looking at the request of council. We started looking at parking in about the middle of 2020. And the first 2 things we did was we picked 6 random blocks within Brisbane, and we conducted over a 2-week period morning and evening parking surveys on survey. At the time, I think it set a record for the number of responses to a survey that the city of Brisbane had done. One of the key findings of that survey was that some 64% of the respondents, let me back up, some 70% of the respondents felt parking was a problem in Brisbane, and some 64% of the respondents favored a parking permit program either. Some had in mind, we came up with initially a public outreach program. When we reviewed that with council, council felt that the problem of parking in the city was severe enough that public outreach type of programs would not be effective. What we were then requested to do, and this was in December of 2021, council requested that we look at best practices of other cities and determine that if Brisbane were doing and discuss this and have put together what we feel would be, if a parking program were to be implemented, how it could be best be done here in Brisbane. So what we are doing tonight is to finalize what our recommendation of such a program could look like. And then it will go to council, and I believe it's in May. Do we have a date on that?
April 6th, if we're ready.
Okay, April 6th, if we reach consensus tonight.
I would just like to say that I really don't feel that it is up to the city to get people to clean up their garages. And it's really not the city's business what we have in our garages. And I would just like to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Pat, agenda's up for you.
Okay, thank you. One comment I would add is that we as a committee have never voted whether we want a parking permit program or not. We have simply acted as best we can the duty that the city has given to us.
Can I comment there?
Yes.
When I went back over, that came up at our last meeting, and I went back over all the minutes. So when staff brought the agenda item to council in April of 2021, the committee, which was somewhat different, some of them to be a parking permit program if all those other things didn't work. Again, looking at how that changed the situation. And I think the committee actually also suggested at the time that there be a vote before implementing such a thing. So then it went to council, and council said, focus on the parking permit program. We don't want to engage with the other two. We just want to have what your recommendation is to do that. So that's where we find ourselves. That it was part of the overall picture, but not alone itself.
That's correct, now that you tickle my memory. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah,
Council with Complete Streets Safety Committee meetings, residential parking permit program recommendation to address the complex parking scarcity issue in central Brisbane. Any thoughts? We're all okay? All right. Background. I don't think we need to go question background, and I think we just kind of accepted it as it was last time, right? Yeah, okay, let's skip down then to the discussion. Over several meetings, the CSSC reviewed and came.
Patrick, I wanted to say I added in background the part about the 6-step program to kind of clarify that that's what we brought to council, and then council directed the committee to develop these guidelines.
Could we just scroll up and look at that then, just quickly?
In the second paragraph there, at the April 7th meeting.
At the April 7th, 2022 City Council meeting, survey results were shared, and the committee thought staff requested feedback, and the committee through staff requested feedback from council on their 3-part plan. Encourage residents to clean out and park in garages to improve street parking capacity. 2, implement a residential street sweeping program with enforcement, and 3, if 1 and 2 were not sufficient to implement, then a residential parking permit program. At the meeting, the CSSC was directed by council to focus on residential parking permit program to be brought back to council. Thank you, Karen. That's great. We're all okay with that? Okay. Let's come down to discussion then. Over several meetings, the CSSC reviewed and came to agreement to recommend the implementation of a residential parking permit program in Central Brisbane with the following guidelines. 1, the program will be in effect throughout Central Brisbane, including Visitation Avenue, excluding private roads and the backside of San Bruno Avenue, for which no street parking exists. I guess I'm going to look, and if you have something, raise your hand. Yeah.
I guess in that case, yeah, we sort of skipped over the recommendation section. I'm wondering, is that part of the discussion later? If there may or may not be not a revote, I'll say, but a reassessment of the previous the recommendation above the discussion between purpose and recommendation, where we say adopt the recommended parking permit program. If you scroll up a little bit, yeah, right there. Portion.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to, well, if we, whether this is the time or if we come back to this later.
No, let's do that right now. Our recommendation is to adopt the CSSC recommended parking permit program guidelines and to provide direction to staff. Is there?
I guess my question is, does this suggest that then the committee does recommend a parking permit program, given the change in sort of 6-step versus 1-step program? Is that something we discuss and vote on? Just to clarify.
Thoughts on that?
I think yes is the answer to that question.
So meaning, yes, we do recommend then as a committee.
Now, to interject, I had thought that was how we concluded the last meeting was, it had come up that had the committee, and again, you're reconstituted, there are some new members, so a prior membership of the committee recommended the 6-step plan that I think that from staff's perspective, I think we need to know you are recommending something or you're not to bring it to council. Otherwise, if you're not recommending it, then why would we even bring it forward to council?
So council requested us to come back to them with a program that would, of how a parking program could, how a permit program could be implemented in Brisbane. And I think that's what we're sending on to them today.
Well, I understand that, but are you going to say these are the guys?
At least, I'm not sure what the entire consensus, at least, I'm not sure what the entire consensus is as a committee is, but at least for, I think in terms of recommendation, I think if the city council decided to decide they wanted to go the parking permit route for the parking permit program, this was our recommendation to them about how it should be set up. I don't know necessarily, I think it's one of those things where we don't, as a committee.
One of the council members, correct. As to what a parking program would entail and how it should be structured. To which another council member said, that's costly. We have a committee that works with already in the city that works with streets and parking and safety and pedestrians and bicycles. Let's ask them to look at this. And that is the complete streets committee. That's us. So I think we have.
And obviously, you know, it keeps coming up and we're not 100% clear how to address it. But for the most part, in my opinion, we could probably, if we sort of tailor the wording instead of recommending reporting. But then again, it almost seems like, you know, we're recommending the parking permit program guidelines and provided direction to staff. So we're saying what we learned, this is what we recommended for what we learned. But
Let's clarify the motion. Linda?
Mike?
Oh, sorry. Okay, my intention with the motion is to ask if you are currently in agreement with what we're recommending to the council, regardless of how you felt about a parking program initially when we started this task.
Let me ask what, by being in agreement with what is being recommended, do you mean, do we endorse what this sentence says?
I guess the question is, are we voting on endorsing the proposal or whether to send it to council regardless of the, I guess, Linda, you're proposing that we send it regardless of our endorsement, or are you saying we should vote on the endorsement of it?
I think we should vote on the endorsement of the work and its completion, and that we are prepared to send this to council, saying that this is our best work at this point. If they have questions, it'll come back.
Well,
To assure the council that this is our best work to date. To assure the council that this is our best work to date, and this is what we're recommending, then I'm willing to do that. Does that make sense? Or somebody put it in other words.
I mean, those words work, and I think that's what staff talks to council about the agenda and what's coming before them, and that's what is needed to bring this without ambiguity to the council.
Can we change the word recommended for, to reporting?
No, I don't think that's getting there. I mean, it could be endorse. That's a word that Linda's using. But if the majority vote is no, that it isn't something that you want to see in your neighborhood, but if council wants to do it, they may go ahead, then that's going to have to be worked into the report.
So, this is a little, I mean, for us, we're volunteers. I know this is where your point of employment, but this is, if we were to take an analogy back to where we have been in points of employment, sometimes your boss asks you to work on something that,
To do a PR, we want something more solidified about this. I, as a staff person that don't live in this city, am the neutral one that does what I'm told. You guys
Right.
are representatives of the community, so that's different. It's not simply your supervisor told you to do this task. You are the eyes and ears of the community. You got a little bit of feedback. We did the survey. We got a bunch of feedback. We don't really know. A lot of people may come and say, we don't want this. It may not be the same.
Have a more personal character or criteria, how we feel, and, how we feel about this program. The first recommendation that we gave them, they looked at it and then they came back with something that we didn't recommend them. And now we're here. We don't know what's going to happen after they review this report. But all we're saying is, we were given some due diligence and we did them, and we're recommending what we did, but we're not endorsing.
I agree with Christian that the wording is sort of the issue, and I think that I don't want to diminish the work the council has done in the last year plus before my time even. And I agree that the work is there, and I think if there were a permit program, this was how we do, but personally, I don't agree with it necessarily. And I think that maybe we put that up to vote. So maybe I make a motion now for us to vote on whether we endorse it, and then we can change the wording on whether we want to adopt it versus review or work out the wording. But perhaps we should vote on whether we endorse it or not, given the new council and sort of the feedback we've heard and the collection of feedback in the last, say, couple months. Sort of coming back to what is the issue record, it sort of reflects what the committee feels, but we still present something to council potentially in terms of what they requested from us, or maybe not. If the committee doesn't want to vote, then
let me make some comments. I'll just throw out a couple ideas here. Or some thoughts. Our original recommendation was the public outreach program. And then later on, if everything failed, after I think it was 12 months of trial or something, Karen, we're going to try the public outreach and the incentive program for context of what our original recommendation was, which was the 6-point plan or the multi-point plan. And rather than just saying implement a parking permit, implement this parking permit program. And we would then go through the details and the work that we have put in, putting this together for the last year.
You mean implement all of the steps that you originally recommended?
Try them.
And a lot of,
Say again?
it feels like overkill and a lot of repetition to
Okay.
me personally. We've been there, we've been given this back, this is our job to do. The work we've done, I think, is good work. And I would be willing to express that this is what I believe is the best route to go that we can discover at this point.
Okay.
And in that,
Can
I
we
think
get
we
it, the
can
letter
all
back up?
This is very good work, and I don't want to be shooting it from the hip, saying I'm not necessarily, as as a citizen of Brisbane, endorse at this point a parking permit program, but this was given to us, and we need to give it to council. But there were also other conversations that went on that I think it was made clear to us that we will make, we will work on this, and they were going to do the public outreach. That's not us. So, and then I think at the beginning we talked about how this we could do that, but at this point, that's sort of out of our mandate, I think.
Yeah, I guess I was bringing it up in the sense of like, would it possibly change how you guys feel about it if when you did outreach, you heard from those 2/3 to maybe it's even more, 4/5 of people that you talk to that say, yes, yes, do this. We know there are some people that don't like it, but they'll get used to it. We need this, this is going to improve parking. And would that help if that were the case? But I don't know if it's the case.
We recommend our review of what was given to us. Basically our work, something like that. I mean, Thomas is definitely more clever than I am. He could shoot me in there.
Yeah, we can do that.
in? We have spent hours on
Absolutely.
little tiny points of how is this going to work and who's going to be disadvantaged and who's going to be helped. And we've taken into account affordability for people, and we're calling it a living project. And I don't see any problem with recommending this for the council to look over, give us their feedback. We've worked way too hard to not stand behind our work.
Linda, I agree with you, but the way the sentence is written is that's not what we're saying in this sentence. What we're asking, what we're recommending council do is recommend the program as it is written down below. To adopt.
Do we need to add in that it's a living program that the first year rolled out free? We'll be getting information back and possibly making changes, and that's part of our recommendation anyway.
The way that's written, it says adopt the recommended guidelines.
And this
So-
is being written to the council, so for them, it's basically telling them, you can adopt our guidelines or provide additional direction.
So can you have guidelines without a program?
Well, I think the way, this was my language, I think this part of the draft, right? And I think, I don't know if that was my intent, but to me, it reads as, we've developed these guidelines at your request, here they are. That's what I see. We do recommend these guidelines, this is our work.
Mm-hmm.
And or provide direction to staff.
Yeah, because they may not. They were not unanimous in their thoughts in April of last year about how to deal with this. This is a difficult problem that the city has had a community group work on for my entire 28-year career with Brisbane. Not an easy nut to crack, so we've gotten pretty far.
What if we were to word this something along the lines of, should council adopt a parking permit program? CSSC recommends implementing with these guidelines.
I don't know, I think that's,
I just think they're bound to ask us staff once we present them. I mean, I understand your guys' point. We did the work, we worked hard. Here's our work. But I can only imagine they might be like, well, how does the committee feel about it though? You know,
I think the way we state it absolutely reflects how the committee and the community feels about it. It's very divided.
Why would they ask that question if this is the work that they asked us to do and we're presenting it to them?
well, you know,
Whether we liked it or not, we did really work hard.
I don't anticipate, not that I have a crystal ball, but I don't know that they'll be unanimous about such a program either.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Unanimous. They probably have mixed feelings about doing it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But as the streets, policy and program recommending committee, they're curious what I don't know. This is an interesting little space in the middle of.
In the spirit of time and to move along with, continue reviewing the other points, is it possible to come back to this point?
Thoughts?
Or I'd be open to that as well. I think to Karen's point, if we add in a recommendation for public vote to the end of this document saying, the committee recommends this program subject to public vote, I'd be very much in favor of that. But, up to the committee, I think. So.
Okay.
With that wording, I would accept the adopt then.
Christian's point is well noted. We're already 7:40 almost. What if we change this sentence to be adopt, recommend, adopt, city council hold a public vote as to whether or not to adopt the CSSC recommended parking permit program guidelines.
I like Darius's suggestion that we leave this alone and put that at the bottom.
Yeah, because they're reviewing the guidelines you're bringing. That's
okay.
That's
And
the last guideline would be, so I guess I move to add to the guidelines then sort of to put this up to public vote if the council decides to adopt this sort of as part of our recommendation.
At the end.
At the last step, sort of after the guidelines, the last step would be subject to a vote of the public.
Let's hold our motion to that point.
Perfect.
If we
Yeah,
could.
we'll do.
Are we okay? Okay. Can we?
To get the word, I mean, can you rephrase that
Well, we'll
again?
get to it at the end. Maybe Darius do you need some paper or something, or it's in your head, or
I'm jotting
okay.
something down.
Okay. Let's go through the guidelines to make sure we're on board with that. Okay, the program will be in effect throughout central Brisbane, including Visitation Avenue, excluding private roads and the backside of San Bruno Avenue, for which no street parking exists. We're okay with that? As I look around, just raise your hand. You don't need to for a prompt, I guess. Each household address may apply for and receive up to 2 permits. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, may be issued 1 additional permit. Okay. Guest parking should be included in a program, but CSSC did not decide upon a specific recommendation on the number to be allowed. Staff suggests 14 permits per year per household and 7 per year for ADUs. Guest parking would be allowed whether the household obtains a year-round parking permits or not.
Sorry, on the previous point, one thing we're not, I guess, addressing here is additional permits beyond the first 2 permits. That's something we had discussed previously, and I don't know if we want to have a note here to let council kind of think about that some more. So it'd be sort of beyond 2 permits. What would that look like, whether for fee or something else that we might recommend?
I think that's was we kind of lumped that into the living document phase. I mean, without actually enumerating, because there were a dozen more nuances like that, I guess, if we're okay with that.
Perhaps there's a comma and a comma and a period there. Maybe we add in
Okay.
with the option to purchase additional one, or with additional, or council allowing additional ones or something. It's under the 2 permit part. Receive up to 2 permits, and there's a comma and a period. So either the comma needs to get rid of there, or, and I'm okay just leaving in the living document as well. I think we don't need to necessarily explicitly say that. I think it's something that we discussed, and yeah, will be addressed, I guess. But it's sort of at the beyond to what happens.
So let me see if I'm clear. We should do something here at this statement now, or
I guess we did discuss sort of allowing something beyond 2 if someone were to have more than 2 vehicles. And so I'm not sure if that's addressed elsewhere. I don't see it in the other bullet points. That's why I kind of brought it up. But I'm not sure whether that should just be in the living document, something that we address and just note it, or have it here explicitly stated.
I think
I remember, talking a little bit about this. One idea was, not to sort of have a parking, give permits, and then people that have more means, they're going to buy a lot, right? And also to discourage it for the third to be more expensive. So those are the 2 caution things that we went back and forth. I'm not sure how this will play out here, but we could definitely mention it.
agree.
Yeah, I guess if we didn't have a consensus on that, we just kind of maybe leave it as is, but something that to point out that maybe there may be more than 2.
So can I comment? I did talk to Commander Garcia when I drafted that part, because quite honestly, if council says, yes, there's a program and we start it, it's going to be him, police staff, that are going to look at those type of exceptions. It's not going to probably be you guys, the committee. And he said he didn't want to explicitly say that in here. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a very gray area, right? It's very, like, you've got a kid home from college for this. He
Exactly.
didn't want to list the examples and get into that here. I'm sure it will come up at the council meeting, and he'll address it, because they're going to be the ones, I think, deciding that. But there wasn't an easy way to, if you list an exception, everybody wants it, and then you can't list all of them, and it kind of waters down the point that it's, for most people, it's going to be 2. So I don't know if you guys are comfortable with that, but that's kind of where staff got it to.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Okay. Everyone else? Okay. All right. Okay. Fiscal impact. I don't think there were any changes there. Let's scroll down. Okay. Now, the key, Darius.
I guess the question is where to input that part then. That would probably be under sort of, I guess, discussion would it be, or be on the end here? I guess it'd be under the very end where this is sort of subject to, our committee would recommend a public vote for this, given the sort of severity of the program.
Maybe as the last
bullet point?
bullet point in the discussion
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I think that would be an appropriate spot for that, perhaps. I'd move to add the bullet
That-
point to suggest that we recommend a public vote to enact such a program.
Okay. I like that. Is that okay?
Yeah, I move to add that to this document then.
Give the exact wording
So
again.
I move to add that the committee, or I guess, and then it says the program should be subject to a public vote in order to
For implementation.
for implementation. Yeah.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Is there a second? Oh, okay. Staff to amend it as we have instructed, and then take it to council April 6th. What would the committee prefer to do?
I think I'm okay with, as long as the staff puts as instructed. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
Could I have a motion then to adopt the letter as amended?
I'll motion to adopt the letter as amended.
Seconded.
Second?
I second it.
Could we get a roll call
I'll
then?
call it a staff report to council, but
Staff report, okay, right,
yeah.
okay.
But last minute, I don't want to get last minute changes later.
No, not Gonna change it.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Okay. Let's move on to new business. I think I would like to do E before we move to D. Let's see, can we make that change to the agenda at this
Well,
point
you
or not?
adopted the agenda.
I'm sorry?
You adopted the agenda.
We adopted the agenda already. Okay. Can we then put up the work plan that we had talked about for 22? Can you expand that a little bit?
There it is.
There we go. Okay, this was the plan that we had put together, and I don't think we need to reach final decisions tonight, but I thought it would be good to discuss this now that we are probably coming to a close on at least part of the parking program at this point in time. That frees up our availability to work on other projects. So at the top of that was the parking permit program. The second item on our work plan for last year was investigate the potential for one-way streets, Mariposa and Monterey, between Visitation and Solano. And actually, we had started working on that when council directed us to work on the parking permit program. Karen, is that still a high priority to the city, that one-way, that change?
I think it's, to my understanding, it's still, yeah, a desirable
Okay,
thing to be studied.
okay. The third item at that time was emergency vehicle access on all city streets for fire safety. The fourth item was study pedestrian path on west side of Bayshore Boulevard from San Bruno Avenue to Old County Road. At the city council meeting where we were directed to work on parking, the mayor at that time expressed interest in this particular project as something that we should work on. Other projects that we had not, that we had on our wish list, I guess, but not prioritized by council, were speeding on streets in the Northeast Ridge, specifically Mission Blue, review of SB 43 regarding local speed limits, and that's a state law whereby the speed limit can be lowered from 25 to a lower speed limit in certain areas. Improve bike lanes and initiatives to encourage bicycling. Review existing shuttle service and evaluate opportunities for improving service to and from Sierra Point. And finally, receive, I cannot read that.
Oh, sorry.
Find it here. There we go, thank you. Receive and comment on Baylands transportation circulation plans or other proposals referred to by Director of Public Works. Anybody's thoughts on what we work on next? This is our open forum,
is
and
there-
if you have something that's not on this list, let's talk about it.
That's, I was just going to ask if I could add something potentially. I think looking into ways to slow down traffic on San Bruno Avenue is important, between San Francisco Avenue and the top of the ridge, of the hill. And I think it's something we can look into to see if there's any way we can slow down traffic there.
Anybody's thoughts on that?
I think it's an excellent idea. Very
I think-
important. It's safety for the children, for pedestrians, and people don't need to be speeding. It's just crazy on such small streets. I agree.
Any other comment?
I guess another sort of note, similar to number 8, reviewing the, I guess, shuttle service, but also access points. I know we talked about the master plan to get to Sierra Point and sort of the connectivity there. It'd be great to sort of review that and maybe reevaluate and sort of, reassess what that looks like in the context of the development of the other Sierra Point developments.
Also referring to item 8, I'm not sure if this is just hearsay or not, but I understand that there's not a whole lot of consideration for parking with the park development out there. And I would like for this committee to have an opportunity to review the parking and have input before it's finalized. I think it's very important.
But that's not yet a project for us yet, is that?
It is happening now. The brainstorming is going on and ideas. And my understanding is that there is going to be an issue with parking.
Add, first of all, the one that Greg mentioned. How does everybody feel about doing that? Is that, I mean, this is not to set it in stone yet, look at it again and make our priorities next week. But add to our list here, slow down traffic on San Bruno Avenue between San Francisco and Thomas Avenue.
Are
And
we,
then-
if people are going 25, you still want them to go slower than that? I'm just trying to clarify because we don't
It's more
have
like
the
they're
data.
going 35
Well,
down that street.
Let's say, hypothetically, if we took data and is 25 the goal?
I think
That's just my question.
A safe speed is the goal.
And the school is right in
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, so the vehicle code only allows you to lower speeds, which we did within 500 feet of the school. So kids
right.
crossing further down the street.
I'm
I
aware
wouldn't
of
say
that.
it's necessary looking at the speed limits, but looking at more at ways we can
Traffic calming.
slow
Okay.
down the traffic in ways. I think speed limit 25 is pretty standard, but I think encouraging people to go 25 is kind of what we would want. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, because there's preliminary things like collecting data and asking police to go enforce there, which, you know, nothing works forever, even if you put up something that's a traffic calming device. I think I've talked about this maybe before you're on the committee. You kind of have to change things up to get people's attention. If you have a radar sign that flashes, that works for a while. If you have a chicane, people figure out how to, so you kind of, if there are 5 things to do, we do one, and then a couple years later, we look at another one.
Linda, any wording help here?
I would like to see the wording say something like concurrent with the planning, the parking, so that if the committee that's working on that gets all the way to the end and then they present it to us, we've had no input and it might really mess up their whole plan. But if we can somehow have an opportunity to review it as it's being put together, I think that would be a really good idea. And I don't know how to put that into words.
So for number 8, you're saying because you have the massive development, Berkshire Point, some of the shorter might need to add another stop, and then from your point, Linda, you're basically saying we need to understand better how they're going to accommodate their parking. Do they have like a parking structure or?
Specifically for, I know I'd hate to see a parking structure, but specifically for the park that's being developed out there, which initially I believe was supposed to be small, but the plans have gotten very big. And if you don't have parking, how are people going to use it? So we've got to really look at a really fine, finesse way to allow people to arrive there and enjoy it.
Can I ask a question? Is the plan, I know I sat in on one of the meetings, but
Not miscommunication, but I think there was some sort of, I think the release of the plans is a little premature perhaps. I think that's just going tomorrow to council to sort of discuss that. I think these are being viewed as sort of proposals or plans. I think that's not the intention originally. And so I think this is sort of more to open up discussion. I think the parking concerns are definitely, I think we're not too late for it yet. And I'm not sure what kind of wording we can include here, but it is, I think, going to council tomorrow. And I think it'll be a healthy, good discussion. And I plan on being there. So, it'd be really great to see you guys there. But I think it is more still perhaps again, I wouldn't.
In that case, should we add bicycle too?
I do believe there's people either on the committee or on the fringes of the committee that are advocating bicycle things out there already. But yeah, it would be good. I don't know that we should be involved in the bicycle part at this point until we see what they're going to come up with.
So perhaps something around the words of, I don't know if it's review or sort. I guess this is part of the. I guess we do want to review the existing shuttle service and perhaps reevaluate other opportunities. Because is there some way to maybe make that more broad?
Mike, Mike,
He's on a roll.
What if we were to just call this point 8, transportation plan for Sierra Point, and under point 8, item A would be the shuttle bus, item B would be parking, item C would be other transportation and parking issues or bicycles, yeah. Would that be all inclusive? No, okay,
Yeah,
That's a good
that
idea.
sounds really good. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I'm similar to this past Friday. When I send out the agenda and minutes, where this revised one will be there, so you guys can all
Great.
take a look at it.
And then we can look at it maybe next month and kind of decide what our priorities are and then talk to our liaisons and council and such.
I also have one more, if you guys don't have any more to say about point 8, I want to say something about point 9.
Yes.
Because this is a massive project, and I know there's been different maps and so forth circulated. And at one point, it would be good to have a refresher or better understanding, the bicycling routes, because it's supposed to have, they really are considering incorporate that as much as possible.
Are you meaning specifically to the Baylands or more in a more general?
I think the Baylands.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That was for point 9, right? You're
Yes.
talking about.
Let's add that into that then as well.
I get a question from me. Is there something that has to go in front of the council again, given this is the 2022 goals? Something we have to present again, or is this sort of adopted by liaisons?
No, this was what we proposed to council, and then they came back and,
Be happening as we are
yes.
focusing on whatever our next first thing is.
Well, maybe it should be our highest priority then. I mean, that's for us to decide as our recommended for next week, right? I mean,
Yeah.
next month.
Yeah, well, I would recommend concurrent because we're not going to be working on it all the time.
Okay,
And there's some other very important things at the top of the list that
Okay.
we've put off for a long time.
okay. I understand. That's a good point.
I think we
That-
should do them separately.
Any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Darius Wozniak as vice chair. Do you have a second?
I second that.
Okay.
all right, so, and that's the extent of the nominations.
Any other nominations? Okay, that's the extent.
So this is a roll call vote to elect Christian as chair and Darius as vice chair. Cabrera,
Aye.
Detmer, Strecker,
Thank you.
and I've been focused on this, so.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Any committee member matters to discuss?
I guess I'll just comment that the committee or the Sierra Point committee is presenting tomorrow in front of City Council, and like I mentioned, I think it'll be an interesting discussion. And so I would encourage you to call in, but otherwise, I think we'll have a sort of summary next time as well.
What is being what is being
I think they're
presented
gonna.
tomorrow?
I think the committee is going to present sort of what research they've done to date and what the process has been like, and I think it's going to be an evaluation.
Liaisons of-
I agree. 100%.
I'm not sure who that
been a
is
while.
now after the reorg.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not-
I
I'm
think
not sure who it is either.
in general, Karen and Tomas, I mean, I feel comfortable having Pat, but at one point it will be it would be good to meet and sort of show me how a little roadmap of this new role.
Just the very beginnings of, at the state level, they are relooking at SB 2449, but I heard nothing about to what extent or anything more about that.
I have
Um,
one more question.
I'll follow up with the city clerk though about,
Okay. April 5th, how do I go about joining via Zoom? Is that very hard to do?
will you email us? And the rules
Certainly.
are new to us too, so I'm gonna have to
Okay.
read.
Could I have a motion then, if there's nothing else, to move to adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second,
I second the motion.
all in favor?
Fourth.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.